On the dark night of August 8, 1963, a Royal Mail train was on its way from Glasgow to London. In one of the carriages, bags filled with cash were present, amounting to around £67 million or 800 crore rupees today. The train's driver, Jack Mills, was driving the engine swiftly through the night when suddenly, the signal light at a crossing flashed red. This was abnormal, as the red signal at that time and place didn't make any sense. Nevertheless, driver Jack Mills quickly applied the brakes, stopping the train in the desolate stretch. For a brief moment, silence enveloped the area, but hidden in that silence was a master plan poised to execute one of the century's greatest robberies, the Great Train Robbery, which would see the train itself taken. Welcome back to Tales of Story. Folks, this sounds like the plot of a movie, but in real life too, criminals orchestrated a suspense-filled plan and managed to steal millions of pounds from a government train, all without firing a single shot. It all began months earlier when a few notorious criminals from London huddled together to carry out a new caper. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind of this plan, began crafting an unparalleled heist with a few associates. He had insider information about Britain's National Post Service, the Royal Mail, from a senior security officer whose name remains unknown to anyone. The information revealed that a special compartment, referred to as the High Value Packages or HVP, would be carrying a substantial sum on a particular day, and they aimed to loot that compartment. Though Bruce Reynolds and his gang were well-known criminals, they had no experience in robbing trains. Therefore, they included another gang from London known as the South Coast Raiders, who had experience in train robberies. Gradually, the team grew larger, and now over 15 individuals were involved, determined to rob the government train without firing a shot. But this was not a simple heist where they could just stop the train and take the money. It required months of planning. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the train departed from Glasgow Central Station for London, scheduled to arrive at London's Euston Railway Station the next morning at 4 a.m. This train had a total of 12 carriages, with 72 post office staff sorting mail during the journey. The train was specifically run for dropping parcels and posts at various cities, allowing mail distribution without stopping at different stations. Whenever a station came up, the local post office staff would hang bags on special elevated racks. As the train passed the platform, it would slow down just enough for the staff inside to catch the bags, which were dropped off at the respective station while the train was moving. The carriage where the robbery was to occur was not yet attached to this train. It was safely parked at the Nain Valley Railway Station. This carriage was referred to as HVP or High Value Packages, mainly filled with cash that people ordered as money orders at that time. In 1960, 3 years prior to this incident, the Post Office Investigation Branch (IP) had instructed that security alarm systems be installed in the HVP carriages, and by 1961, 3 HVP carriages were equipped with these alarms. The older carriages, without alarm systems, were kept in reserve. However, on the day of the robbery, the most critical aspect was that the HVP carriages equipped with alarm systems were out of service. Therefore, a reserve carriage, M3024M, was to be used, which had no security system at all. This was a significant tip given to the criminals by an insider from Royal Mail. When the train departed from Glasgow, the railway staff connected the HVP carriage just behind the engine. This was the first tip for the criminals. But the second tip was even more crucial. Normally, HVP carriages carried around £300,000. However, due to the previous week's bank holiday weekend, on the day of the robbery, around £3 million in cash was on board. This was tip number 2. This confluence of events that occurred on that day was probably a once-in-a-lifetime scenario. They were getting 12 times more money, and coincidentally, the security alarm system of the HVP carriage was also malfunctioning. For the criminals, it was no coincidence. They had been planning for this day for months. The train, with the HVP carriage attached, left Nain Valley Station. Night had fallen, and 58-year-old Jack Mills was speeding the train towards its destination. Meanwhile, the gang lay in wait behind the bushes near the railway track. Their planning was perfect. Around 3 a.m. on August 8, a member of the gang began tampering with the signal at Sayers Crossing. He inserted a glove to obscure the green light and used a battery to activate the red light before hiding and waiting for the train. When the train neared Sayers Crossing, the driver was astonished to see the red light, since normally, trains were not stopped at that crossing, especially not the Royal Mail train. Nevertheless, Jack Mills applied the brakes and stopped the train at the signal. Suddenly, everywhere was shrouded in silence. The assistant driver, known as the second man, got off the train to use the phone to communicate with the signalman. When he picked up the phone at the signal, he discovered that the line was cut, part of the criminal's plan. Just as the second man was about to head back to the engine, he was ambushed by the gang, who emerged from the bushes. Some of the criminals climbed onto both sides of the engine and attempted to subdue the driver. When Jack Mills resisted, one of the criminals struck him on the head with a metal bar, rendering him unconscious at the driving wheel. The criminals had arrived fully prepared. While the commotion was happening in the engine, some of the team members uncoupled the first two carriages from the rest of the train. Their plan was to take the train away from that spot, but where to? About 1 kilometer away from Sayers Crossing was Bridego Bridge, where the criminals' truck awaited them. They had also brought along a retired railway driver, whose job was to drive the train to Bridego Bridge. Everything that happened up to this point was according to plan. However, the criminals now faced their first obstacle. The driver they brought along panicked at the controls of the new engine, having never operated it before. Reluctantly, the criminals tried to wake Jack Mills and forced him to drive the train 1 kilometer further. The engine and two carriages began to move again, reaching Bridego Bridge. Meanwhile, the staff in the remaining carriages had no idea why the train had stopped. Upon reaching Bridego Bridge, the gang broke the doors of the HVP carriage, entered, and injured 5 staff members, tying them up with ropes and starting their operations. The HVP carriage contained a total of 128 bags filled with cash. These were £1, £5, and 10 shilling notes, weighing nearly 2 tons in total. The train was at the bridge, and below it stood a truck. According to the gang's plan, they had only 15 minutes to execute their robbery. Thus, they formed a human chain, loading 120 out of the 128 bags onto the truck one by one. The remaining 8 bags were left behind due to time constraints. Their plan had worked out perfectly. However, there was one critical mistake that would eventually lead to their capture. As they were leaving, one criminal warned the tied-up staff not to try to move for 30 minutes, or else they would lose their lives. The criminals drove away in an Austin Lodestar truck, loaded with all the cash, and 2 Land Rovers, which they used to mislead witnesses by putting the same number, BMG 757, on all vehicles. After about a 45-minute drive, they reached their hideout in Oakley, a village approximately 43 kilometers from the scene of the crime. During this time, they listened to police communications over VHF radios, which greatly aided them. Just as they settled into their hideout, the police had already gotten wind of the robbery. But for the moment, they were quite pleased, having arrived at their hideout for some fun, even playing a Monopoly game using real cash. However, this joy was short-lived. Soon after, they overheard over the radio that the police were searching for them within a 50 kilometers radius. The police had a good idea of their whereabouts, thanks to the testimony of the staff who informed them of the 30-minute warning given by the criminals, indicating they must be nearby. Alarmed, the robbers hurriedly changed their escape plan from Sunday to Friday. By Thursday, they had distributed all the money among themselves. The stolen amount was about £2.5 million. According to some reports, each individual received about £150,000, which was a substantial sum at that time, equivalent to £3.9 billion today. They also divided the rest of the money among some helpers. Before Friday, they wiped their fingerprints off everything in the hideout and assigned someone to destroy the hideout after their departure so that the police could find no evidence. He accepted the cash but fled without burning the hideout. Meanwhile, the police were searching throughout Buckingham City for them. Helicopters hovered overhead, police cars raced from place to place, and there was quite a commotion in the national media. The police also announced a £10,000 reward for any information leading to their arrest. A neighbor of the hideout came forward and informed the police that there had been significant activity early on the morning of August 8. Acting on suspicion, the police swiftly raided the hideout, which was a leather slate farmhouse rented by the robbers 3 months prior. Inside, the police discovered ample evidence linked to the robbery, such as empty bags, mail, and a truck that had been hastily painted yellow. The criminals had cleaned their fingerprints from the scene, but some fingerprints remained on the Monopoly game they had played with the real money. This fingerprint evidence turned out to be a major breakthrough in the case, as each criminal had prior criminal records. Within days, the police had arrested 14 of the 16 gang members. Only 2 managed to evade capture. One was a replacement train driver whose actual identity was unknown, and the other was the senior security officer from Royal Mail, whose tip-off had instigated the entire plan. To this day, neither of their identities is known, as they never showed the true faces or revealed the names. The court deemed this robbery the greatest heist of the century, sentencing nearly all members of the gang to 30 years in prison. After this robbery, Bridego Bridge became informally known as the Train Robbers Bridge and retains that name to this day. Jack Mills, the 58-year-old train driver, never returned to his job due to the injury he sustained from the attack, and he passed away 7 years later from the trauma. We hope you enjoyed this video from Tales of Story. Thank you for your loving comments. Until we meet again in another fascinating video.